Chapter 47. The Whisper in the Dark. The aftermath of the battle at the pass was a landscape of cooling iron and restless spirits. While Morgana retreated to her fortress, fuming over the missed opportunity to crush the Pendragon, Elune sat alone in the damp darkness of her tent. She was stitching a new tear in her leathers, her hands steady despite the bone-deep exhaustion. The flap of the tent moved, but there was no sound of a guard's boot. "You're losing your touch, Elune," Merlin said, stepping out of the shadows. His eyes weren't blue, they were fading from a brilliant, ancient gold. "You almost let him kill you today." Elune didn't look up, though her needle paused for a fraction of a second. "He needed to believe I was a threat, Merlin. If I don't sell the lie, Morgana burns Camelot to the ground before the week is out." Merlin sat across from her on a wooden crate, his expression unusually grave. "I've spent years watching you from the corners of rooms. I saw what you did at the Isle of the Blessed, and I saw what you did with the Cup of Life. Everyone thinks I'm his protector, the Emrys of prophecy. But in the physical world, in the grit and the blood, it was always you." "I'm just the shadow, Merlin," she muttered, finally looking at him. Her eyes were rimmed with red, her face gaunt. "Shadows don't get legends. They just get forgotten." "I won't let you be forgotten," Merlin said firmly. "And neither will he. He's at the ridge, 3 miles south. He's sent the knights ahead, but he's stayed behind. He's waiting for a ghost." Elune's heart gave a traitorous thud. "He'll kill me on sight." "No," Merlin whispered. "He saw your eyes in the mist. Arthur is many things, but he isn't blind to the woman who has saved his life more times than he can count. Go to him before the war starts. Give him back his anchor." 88,888,888. The ridge was bathed in the pale, silver light of a dying moon. Arthur stood by a small, flickering fire, his golden hair dulled by the ash of the day's fighting. He had stripped off his heavy plate, wearing only his chainmail and a travel-worn tunic. He didn't turn when the brush rustled. He didn't reach for Excalibur. "I knew you'd come," he said, his voice a low, rough vibration in the night air. Elune stepped into the circle of firelight. She looked wild, blood-splattered, her hair a tangled mess of dark silk and mud. She looked like the outlaw she had always been, and to Arthur, she looked like the only truth left in a world of illusions. "You should have let me go, Arthur," she said, her voice a gritty rasp. "I was doing my job. I was keeping her eyes off you." Arthur turned then. He didn't look like a king, he looked like the man who had sat with her on the battlements years ago. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides, his hands coming up to cup her face with a desperation that broke her heart. "I don't care about the strategy," he breathed, his thumbs brushing the grime from her cheekbones. "I don't care about the vanguard or the trap. I saw you today. I saw you protecting my men while you were wearing her colors. You've been fighting a war for me that I was too proud to see." "I love you, Arthur," she whispered, the words finally breaking free after years of exile and silence. "That's the only conflict I've ever really been in." Arthur didn't answer with words. He pulled her into a kiss that tasted of salt, iron, and years of unspoken devotion. It wasn't the soft, courtly kiss of a queen, it was the kiss of 2 soldiers who knew the dawn might bring their end. In that moment, the division was gone. The secret of Lancelot, the betrayal of Agravain, the years at Joyous-Gard, it all fell away, leaving only the prince and his Saxon mercenary outlaw, an heir to the throne of Mercia. They stayed by the fire until the first grey streaks of dawn touched the horizon. Elune leaned against his chest, the rhythmic beat of his heart the only thing keeping her grounded. "You can't come back to Camelot yet," Arthur said, his hand tangling in her hair. "The knights. They won't understand." "Not until the war is over." "I know," she said, her grit returning as she pulled away to check her blades. "I go back to Morgana. I keep her distracted until you reach Camelan. I'll be the traitor a little longer, Arthur. Just make sure you survive to tell the truth when it's done." Arthur stood, reaching for his cloak. He looked at her, for the first time, as his equal. "When this is over, Elune, I don't care about the law or the throne. I'm bringing you home." "I'm home," she said, looking at him one last time before slipping back into the trees. As she vanished toward the dark towers of the north, Arthur stood alone at the ridge. He was a king prepared for his final battle, and for the first time in years, his heart was a weapon, sharpened by the love of a woman who had spent her life in the dark just to keep him in the light. The fire had burned down to a low, smoldering orange, casting long, flickering shadows against the canvas of the tent. Outside, the world was preparing for its end, but inside, the silence was heavy and thick with the weight of years. There was no courtly grace in the way they moved toward one another. They were two soldiers, scarred by the same wars and hardened by the same losses. Arthur's hands, calloused from the hilt of Excalibur, were steady as he reached for her, and Elund met him with a ferocity that was born of a decade of being his shadow. When they finally came together, it was with a desperate, grounded reality. The grub of the outside was still on their skin, and the odor of wood smoke clung to their hair. It wasn't the polished romance of a legend, it was the visceral, bone-deep recognition of two people who had spent their lives bleeding for the same dream. Arthur's movements were powerful and grounded, his strength meeting her fierce, unwavering energy, as their eyes locked, and both refused to back down. In this space, they were equals, in the roughness of their embrace. The way he took here a broken bar, none of it was about aggression, but about a deep, mutual craving for something real and tangible, as close as two people could be. Afterwards, they held on to each other with a crushing grip, memorizing the texture of scars and the heat of their bodies, finding a profound sense of belonging in the silence of the night.